Hello, my lovely anatomists and physiologists. Thanks for joining me. We are going to be focusing here first on that thyroid gland. So remember the thyroid gland is located underneath the larynx, which is our common name for voice box, in front or anterior to the trachea. So we're up here in the throat region. And we already know, remember, that our thyroid is going to be turned on by our thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, which is coming from the adenohypophysis. And we said that when our TSH is released, it's going to stimulate the thyroid, and we said it's going to be producing what we can talk about here collectively as thyroxines. And we can abbreviate thyroxines as T3 and T4, so we can think about them together. Now, one of the key features of the thyroxines is that it's going to require iodide from our diet, which is a negative anion of iodine. And so this is where we have subsidized this in our food. So a lot of you are using iodized salt, and the purpose behind the iodized salt is to provide the iodide that can be sometimes difficult to obtain from our diets, especially those of us who are not living close to the ocean. And if you are not getting the iodide that you need from your diet, then this can alter your thyroid activity. It's not able to produce those thyroxines, and you can have what's described as a goiter, which is this enlarged thyroid, and you can see it visibly in somebody's neck area. What we see with our thyroxines is that they are going to be mostly packaged and transported using what are called thyroxine binding globulins, or we can abbreviate them as TBGs. And the key point of this is because they're packaged up and transported, they actually bind to intracellular receptors. So we talked about intracellular receptors as binding with lipid-soluble hormones, and we see that's true. We also see thyroxines are going to be binding here as well. Our thyroxines are going to be involved in increasing our nutrient breakdown. They're going to be involving or increasing our, I'm going to say ATP production. They're going to be involved in increasing our proteins, our glycolytic proteins. These are the proteins that are involved in the breakdown of glucose. So this is another way that we're increasing our ATP production. And we'll also see that they are involved in increasing our sensitivity to both epinephrine and norepinephrine. And so here we're seeing a first example of one of our hormone interactions. So this interaction specifically would be described as permissive. So what we see is that the thyroxine has to be present in order for the epinephrine and the norepinephrine to be available to do their work. Collectively, we often talk about this thyroxine activity as increasing metabolism. And so people who have hyperthyroidism are going to have a lot of unexplained weight loss. And people who have hypothyroidism, it's inactive or below activity, might have unexplained weight gain. Okay. When we talk about the thyroid, we don't just see thyroxines being produced here. We also see sort of an old friend. So we also get calcitonin being produced. I say this is an old friend because you talked about this one in AMP1. It was part of your calcium regulation. So what we see is it's going to reduce blood calcium levels. And it's going to do this by inhibiting osteoclasts. We're also going to see that it is going to decrease calcium absorption from the GI tract. And it's also going to increase calcium loss at the kidney. So calcitonin is talking to both your kidney and your bone cells. It's going to inhibit your osteoclast activity, so you're not breaking down your bone, and you're going to trigger the kidney to get rid of your extra calcium and reduce your calcium absorption from your small intestine. Now, we've talked about the parathyroid hormone as having this anatomical connection to the thyroid. So when we look on the back of the thyroid, we have these 4 small glands. We see 2 on each lobe of the thyroid, and these glands are referred to as the parathyroid glands, and these are producing the parathyroid hormone, which is abbreviated PTH. Now, PTH should also be an old friend. Parathyroid hormone also came up in AMP1 when we were talking about calcium regulation, and it's going to have the opposite sort of reaction. So our parathyroid hormone here is going to increase our osteoclast activity and decrease our osteoblast activity. We're also going to see it increasing our calcium reabsorption, or let's say retention at the kidney. And we're going to see that it's going to stimulate the kidney to produce calcitriol. Now here we're seeing another example of hormone interaction. So here when we're looking at parathyroid hormone versus calcitonin, that's talking about our antagonistic effects. So I'm going to grab a red marker and I'm going to circle my parathyroid hormone, and I'm going to go up here and circle my calcitonin. And then I'm going to try to sort of make a connection between the two. And I'm going to say antagonistic effects. So this is talking about they have opposing actions. So the calcitonin is decreasing blood calcium levels, whereas your parathyroid hormone is ultimately increasing blood calcium levels. Now, the other thing that we mentioned is with the parathyroid hormone, we get the production of this hormone here called calcitriol. And the calcitriol, we'll see, is a hormone that's going to talk to the small intestine. And we're going to see that it's going to increase calcium absorption at the small intestine. So calcitriol is increasing calcium absorption at the small intestine. We can also talk about this as the active form of vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 we talked about also last semester as being a vitamin that was being produced from our integumentary system in response to UV radiation. And now we're seeing another hormone interaction, because now I'm going to star my parathyroid hormone, and then I'm going to star my calcitriol. And then what we're seeing with these two is they're working together in different ways for the same goal. So they're different but complementary. And we talked about that as integrative effects. So here on this one slide, talking about hormones produced from the parathyroid gland and the thyroid gland, we're seeing 3 examples of hormone interactions. So we saw with the thyroid, the production of thyroxines as being permissive for epinephrine and norepinephrine. And then we saw the antagonistic effects between the calcitonin and the parathyroid hormone. They're doing different actions opposing each other. So calcitonin decreases blood calcium levels, whereas parathyroid hormone increases blood calcium levels. And then we see the third interaction of integrative effects between the parathyroid hormone and the calcitriol, where they're working together for the same goal, but they're accomplishing that in different ways. All right, stay tuned for our next endocrine gland and next set of hormones. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.